if you're building production ready, high performance, custom UI sites, something like WordPress, in my opinion, very rarely makes sense because they make those trade-offs on how their content structure works so that they can give you that themability. And when you're not using that themability, if you bring a whole custom front end to, say, a WordPress project, you're kind of accepting those trade-offs without the benefit that they're trading for.
This site is going to be public and someone needs to be able to edit the content. So I'm building a marketing site. Maybe I'm building a news media or whatever it is, but it needs to be found in the search engines and it needs to be easily editable. So what should I go with? Should I go with WordPress because it's the number one most popular CMS in the world? It does both REST APIs, GraphQL, and traditional CMS stuff. So, and it has like a million plugins. So I think WordPress is the like, you have no other options, or do you?
Yeah. Also, awesome question. I think it's a very interesting landscape right now than it was 3 to 5 years ago because of just the many new options and new styles of options that are showing up. So you've got your traditional CMSs like WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, Expression Engine, Craft CMS even fits into that bucket. And then you've got these new headless CMSs, which are content management systems, but all they expose for you is an API. So you put your content in, and then if you want to get your content out, you can use it in an app, a website, or whatever you want to use it in by using their APIs, but it doesn't give you a templating language. It does not care whatsoever about your templates. WordPress is very different from that, and it's got a very different set of trade-offs because knowing about your templates allows it to do different things, right? So with something like Contentful, you couldn't like install a theme, right? Or something like Sandy, you couldn't install a theme and have a website up and running in an hour, because your front end needs to be custom. So even if you pulled in like a front end UI library and all of that, you're still having to like build out the blocks and decide where the content goes. Whereas with something like WordPress, it's much more tailored to pulling in a theme and then maybe making UI changes to that, maybe kind of theming that theme, but it's based around the idea of you're using templates built for its specific content structure. There's also differences even within that kind of WordPress land that knows about your templating because some of them are more flexible and some of them are less. So WordPress itself has a pretty strict content structure. If you start up a WordPress website, you'll have users, I believe, posts and pages, and you'll have images, but that's pretty much all you get. And if you want to do more than that, I think to this day, as far as I know, you still have to get in PHP and tell it like, okay, I don't just want pages. I want, another type of field like events or something like that. Or you can install a plugin, which will kind of register those new content types for you. Whereas something like Expression Engine or Craft is based around the idea that your content is very flexible and will change. It'll be different from site to site. So we like that because we work with different companies, different sizes, different content types. Some of them are e-commerce, some of them are basic marketing sites, some of them are colleges that have lots of related content, but they're all very different content structures where if you tried to kind of shoehorn all of their content into posts and pages and categories, you would have a really rough time. So each of them have very different trade-offs. So I think when picking, it makes sense to decide what type of site you're trying to build. If you're trying to build something to get content into a CMS and have a front end that looks pretty good up and running as soon as you can, something like a WordPress or a Squarespace, something with themes makes a lot of sense. If you're building production ready, high performance, custom UI sites, something like WordPress, in my opinion, very rarely makes sense because they make those trade-offs on how their content structure works so that they can give you that themability. And when you're not using that themability, if you bring a whole custom front end to, say, a WordPress project, you're kind of accepting those trade-offs without the benefit that they're trading for. So there's probably going to be a better tool for you.
I think like the biggest challenge with WordPress, from my perspective, for anything that is not like a mid-sized website, is actually that, like, when you're doing smaller websites, people usually end up using some crappy ready-made theme from Theme Forest or something, and those have some issues. So it's not, like, from my perspective, even like super good for if I'd like to build my own website. So the Squarespaces or Wix or whatever might be better because it's like really built for that use case, or WordPress.com that has like limitations on what it supports.
Right.
And then the large scale websites, the challenge is that you really need to understand what you're doing. You really need to know what plugins you can use. The company where I worked for on WordPress, I actually started the business, and they've continued it like after I left. And they're like a really, really like professional WordPress shop, but they have a really kind of narrow set of plugins that they use, and they have a lot of their own plugins. So I think that is kind of the WordPress is so popular that there's like literally like a million people around the world trying to sell you something.
Right.
Everyone wants to be on the platform, so it's very, very hard to navigate the ecosystem, and so it becomes very hard unless you're doing something like that has a really, really good use case for it, and you understand the platform quite a bit. Right. So that's the biggest challenge.